Demanded my fiancé honor my cultural tradition of Lobola, he refused, calling it extortion, and now I'm reconsidering our wedding plans. I, 31F, am a black African woman. We've been dating for 7 years. I came to his country to study and have lived and worked here since. Ever since we started dating, he took such an interest in my culture. Asked me to teach him my language, culture, and we've even been to visit a few times. He asked me to marry him last year and I accepted. We're planning our wedding. I mentioned we'd need to account for my family back home. We could have the traditional wedding in my home country and the white wedding in his, since we don't want to ask anyone to fly and get visas etc. The issue came when I mentioned a bride price needing to be paid, something he scoffed at. To call it a bride price is misleading because there is so much more to it than the money that changes hands. It's our time-honored tradition that blends two families into one, and JTS always something I wanted to do when you got married. I mentioned he knew of marriage customs in my country and that they include a BP. We both work in law/human rights type of field, so he assumed I would be against a BP. I told him I'm against it being a forced and money-making thing, but I'm asking that he does it BC I'd choose it and I want to honor my parents and culture. He refused, saying it was backwards and extortionate and it would be like he bought me. I assured him that wasn't the case. My parents would charge a tokenistic/symbolic amount, nothing crazy, just to symbolize us getting together. I said if my parents were to sell me, he couldn't afford me. This set him off in a rage because I somehow insulted him by saying that, when what I meant is my parents aren't looking to make money off me, but this is something my people have done for millennia and I don't want to break from tradition. I have said if I'm willing to go ahead with marrying him if he isn't willing to make the trip to my country and talk to my parents about the Lobola process. He says I'm forcing/manipulating him. I am not. He knew from day one who I was and where I came from. This is what my people do and I feel for him to label it backwards is Eurocentric BC. He is viewing it from his lens, despite me having explained what it's actually about it. TLDR, my white boyfriend won't pay honor my culture in our marriage and if I won't marry him if he's unwilling. Ida? ETA, there's a lot of misconception and ignorance in the comments. I shall try to clarify. 1. BF and I didn't talk about BP in our specific context. However, he knew from real life and fictional context the marriage customs of my people. I assumed that he, knowing what he knows, would have known the steps necessary for marrying me. Perhaps I was wrong to assume that. This Lobola is no affront to him or his upbringing outside of what I view to be a judgment of moral superiority. 2. A lot of your comments are ignorant with thinly veiled racial undertones. I knew coming to a platform with predominantly white users, this was a risk. I ask that you read what you're saying before you post, and ask yourself if you are coming from a position of superiority colored by your beliefs of Africa and Africans. Step outside your worldview. 3. Frankly, my parents are wealthy. They neither need nor plan to get rich off my marriage. They have a demonstrated pattern of behavior that assures me they are reasonable and fair when it comes to this kind of thing. 4. The money is a minuscule, literally like 5%, part of the traditional marriage, but it is a part of it. The other 95% is not monetary and is a beautiful ceremony that blends two families together. My concern is that if he's willing to shun the 95% for the sake of the 5%, what does Mount Future W this man look like? 5. Culturally, if we do not go through these customs, I am not married and my marriage won't be recognized. The ceremony is a cultural must-have, the wedding ceremony a nice-to-have. My family mean a lot and my parents have done a lot for me. I disrespect my parents over something that I not only think is a non-issue, but something I agree with. You seem to miss the part where I am willingly consenting to this. Final edit. Logging off. Lobola is something I am unable and unwilling to scrap. I'll talk to him. We shall decide on the future of this relationship. If it's something he is unwilling to partake in, I guess we'll have our answer. Update 1. I'm a big girl and I know how to handle myself. This post got a lot more traction than I was expecting. Like a lot. I don't use this sub but it's somewhat infamous so I thought I'd try it. It seems I was asking too much of Redditors by asking them to engage in a little cultural relativism. That's on me, I'll take that L. I've heard from so many African women in interracial relationships whose white partners have observed their version of Lobola. Thank you all. It was really nice to hear from people who not only understand the culture but have been through something similar. It is people like you I was hoping to hear from, so I'm grateful you were able to offer some perspective. I wish I could respond to you all. Know that I'm grateful for your input and I wish you well. I also heard from a lot of Asian users who have similar cultural practices which they wish to uphold when they marry. Rooting for you all, you deserve to be your authentic selves with your chosen spouses. It's always fascinating to me to hear how other people live. Thank you again for reaching out to tell me your stories. A lot of you were mad that I pointed out there was racial and cultural superiority in your comments. Stay mad. Objective morality does not exist. You're disappointed and insulted. I chose not to follow the ways of enlightened Europe and stick to the barbaric customs of my people. That's a you problem. I'm not European and I have no desire to be. I like who I am and where I'm from. I didn't leave my country because it sucked, and I would have long left had I not met this man. If that's an affront to you, too bad. PSA for the young girls on the sub, underlining a deal breaker is not manipulative. Don't let people tell you that. You should set your boundaries, and people are free to take it or leave it. Don't let anyone make you feel bad or bully you into doing what they want. I showed this to my fiancé. Neither of us could read through the 1700 plus comments, but we read enough to get the gist of it. Some of you will be disappointed to know we have not broken up, he has not left me. He did however point out that this was not the right place to ask this question which, again, was an error on my part. He saw a lot of you making the same argument as him about it being inappropriate for him to marry me in accordance with my cultural practices. He doesn't hold this forum in high regard, so it was the wake-up call he needed to realize he was in the wrong. It's not for him to determine what is and isn't culturally appropriate in my culture. Lobola is not a cultural affront to him, but the absence of it would be to me. I was right, he did know I'd want him to go through the Lobola process. He was going to see if he could talk me out of it before his ego was bruised by a tongue-in-cheek comment. He has apologized for how he acted. Once he got off his ethnocentric high horse, he said he was willing to go through with Lobola as long as it's what I wanted. Yes, I apologized for tongue-in-cheek comment. We've signed up for premarital counseling, and we're in the process of setting a date for Lobola upon completion. People raised concerns for my well-being and asked if he could be a closet racist. I don't believe that to be the case. We've been together a long time, and this was the first time he said something that I would consider to be racist. He's a good man. However, like everyone, he does have biases and issues to work through. That's what prompted us to sign up for premarital counseling to address and work on those. Again, thank you for caring. I'm good. A final, unexpected note to discuss messages I've had on career advice and NGOs. The development sector is messed up, this is true. However, it is a vehicle through which a lot of people receive a lot of help they need. Like everything, it has its good and bad aspects. We work in water scarcity and water rights, so we're not directly involved in the development part. I wouldn't say turn your back on it though. We need good people to go and do good things. Remember to listen to people in the developing world. They're smart, resourceful, and they know what their communities need to thrive. Be prepared to serve their needs and you'll be okay. Good luck with it. Smile. There is a whole world outside the internet. If you view the world through your lens from your small corner of the world, you will miss out on a lot beautiful and wonderful things. I won't be reading the comments, make of this what you will. Wear a mask and drink plenty of water. Bye. Long post alert. Sorry for the brain dump, I just need help saving my family. I sincerely feel our problem started on Reddit, so I feel it's only right to come back here to see if you can help me solve the mess we made. So a few years ago, my wife came to Reddit for advice navigating a cultural clash. You can read her OG post. In retrospect, the responses she got were awful, rude and many racist. My wife is from Zimbabwe, I am Swiss, and we met while at university in my country. I fell for her instantly. Truthfully, I'd never seen anyone so beautiful. She was kind, so incredibly intelligent, and has this gravitational pull to her. We started off as friends, but we eventually began dating and got into a steady relationship. I wanted to marry straight away, but she had career ambitions she wanted to meet before she married. At the time of the Reddit post, I was going through some stuff. In truth, I knew the expectation of Rura was on anyone who would marry her, and I had been saving for that alongside her engagement ring for years. I had gotten into a fight with my brother before she asked me about setting a date for her Rura, where he'd said some nasty things about me being with a black woman and how I was losing myself and my cultural identity due to the concessions I'd made to be with my wife. It's why I reacted the way I did when she asked me about it, something I deeply regret to this day. After the shit show that was that post, we spent 3 months in couples counseling. She repeatedly told me that she didn't want to force me to do anything I didn't want to do. She said that she deserved to be with someone who enthusiastically embraced all parts of her, and if any part of me took issue with her culture, she asked that I bow out before I tied us together for life. I confess that I knew all along about the Rura, and I had prepared for it, but the conversations with my brother are what led me to say what I did. She was mad. I'd allowed her to be mocked, ridiculed and bullied by strangers online because I couldn't communicate with her, but we worked through. We had a beautiful traditional wedding in her country, then another one with my traditions in mine. Her family was kind and welcoming, making many concessions for me as they had done since I met them. We planned on starting a family soon after we married, but she'd always said she wanted to have her babies back in her country so she can have her family around her. We had agreed that this is what we'd do. It's important to note that my wife doesn't really like living here. She says she hates living here. We lived in Sweden for much of our relationship, and many will know the people are on the cold side. She hated the food, the weather, struggled with the cold people. Her country's people are very warm and friendly, and for the last 2 years she had to go on antidepressants because it was all a bit much for her. She asked me when we were going to move, and I asked for us to hang on for a while so I can finish a project I'm leading at work. We'd fought about this in the past, but this time she just nodded at me, so I thought she finally got it. That was over 18 months ago, and we didn't end up moving as I got promoted and it became harder to walk away. Her grandma passed away, so I attributed the low mood to that. Our problems came when she asked me if I was having an affair with my colleague. This was when I got home late one evening and found her sitting in the dark. I'd forgotten she was making dinner for us, to be honest, because I had a lot going on at work and it just slipped my mind. I told her that colleague and I were working late and I forgot, sorry. She grew confrontational and told me I was spending a lot of time with colleague lately, and she's noticed her name on my phone more than a few times. She asked me if there was anything she ought to know. This is when I may have killed my marriage. I told her I didn't give her father a truck full of cattle for her to question me. This was my house, my wife, and if I wanted to have something on the side that was nobody's business but mine. She looked like I'd slapped her and I could see her holding back tears. I don't know why I didn't drop to my knees and beg forgiveness, instead doubled down and told her to stop the theatrics. Here's the thing, I'm not having an affair of any kind with my colleague, we really were just heavily into this project we're both super excited about. I don't know why I couldn't just say that to my wife. She didn't come to bed that night, and I left early in the morning the day after and came home when she was asleep. This continued for days where I avoided her because I couldn't face the guilt. On the Friday, came home to a gift box that contained a positive pregnancy test and a long letter from my wife. I won't share all of it, but she said she was going to tell me on the night I bailed on dinner, that I had hurt her beyond measure with what I said to her and that she was no longer going to show her love for me through self-sacrifice. She told me she doesn't consent to be in a polygamous relationship, and since it's what I want I should expect to receive divorce papers from her soon. She left her rings and house keys too. I had a panic attack. I was able to call for help before the worst of it came, but I spiraled. I had monumentally fucked up, and lost my wife and unborn child because of it. I tried to call her, but her phone was going straight voicemail. I called her brother, who was short with me but assured me she was fine. He wouldn't tell me more. I finally tracked her down after 2 weeks. She'd gone back to her parents in Zimbabwe. I can't follow her just yet because the project I've worked on for so long now is near completion and I can't walk away. My friends told me I was racist to my wife in my actions, because I never would have tried that with a white man and tried to use her culture against her. The fact that I wasn't even serious make me more cruel apparently. She still won't speak to me, I have tried all avenues and she won't hear me out. I love her beyond measure and I don't know how to get her back. Please, help me. Now on to second story. Siblings accuse me of scamming them out of our mom's inheritance by selling her house to my boyfriend, despite her wishes for us to live there. I, 28F, have 6 siblings. Our mom recently passed in November from stage 4 cancer. I had a really great relationship with my mom. We would spend time together and my 4 children, 5-year-old twins, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, all loved her. I am the youngest of all my siblings. My older siblings didn't prioritize much time with my mom until the last few months when she couldn't do much for herself anymore. I currently live with my boyfriend, 38 male, and our 4 children in a 3-bedroom apartment. It's a nice apartment but of course is not ideal for our large family. Over the summer while my mom was still very coherent, she signed a transfer on death of her house, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, to me for myself, my boyfriend, and our children to move into. She did the transfer so I wouldn't have to buy the house as we would not be able to afford a loan for her house. And her house only had less than a year left until it was completely paid off so we would be able to afford her payments that way. All of my other siblings own their own homes and have plenty of room in their homes for their individual families. I didn't ask my other siblings if they were okay with this but I didn't see it as their decision or whether they had a say considering it's our mom's house and she had final say anyway. And like I said, all of my siblings own their own homes anyway. Once my mom passed, she had some medical bills that needed taking care of so it seemed as though we would need to sell the house to take care of them. After looking into it more, my boyfriend said he would buy the house at just enough to cover the medical bills rather than what it's worth considering we cannot afford what it's worth plus my mom had planned on us just moving in and not doing any sort of loan anyway. She had a cash inheritance which she left my oldest sister, Melanie 43F, to split equally among all of my siblings. Since my mom has passed, we have asked Melanie how much is left in the inheritance as it would be split 7 ways and she would always kind of dodge the question. She would say she hasn't counted it yet or she's unsure. My mom also had some coins that were worth some money. She had 4 coins worth about $3,200 and a 5th coin worth about $1,200. I only found out about these coins from my other sister, Rochelle 35F, because she told me Melanie thought about giving a coin worth $3,200 to herself, Rochelle, my brother Nick 37M, and myself. The coin worth less to another hand-picked sibling. And then just never telling the last 2 siblings about the coins at all. That really upset me. I understand the coins gain value over time and that's why they didn't want to pawn them for cash to split equally, but that is really unfair and, considering there are not 7 coins, I believe the fairest situation would be to pawn them for cash so everyone could be involved. I suggested that and then never heard anything else about the coins after that. And then one day last week when I had Rochelle and my niece over for dinner, she dropped a gold coin out of her purse and quickly put it back. I never said anything but I couldn't believe they decided to kick me out of that inheritance because I stuck up for the 3 siblings that were going to be slighted. Well, flash to a couple days ago my boyfriend got approved for the loan. I told Melanie about this to keep her in the loop and her response shocked me. She told me she did not feel comfortable selling the house to my boyfriend. I didn't understand because selling the house to my boyfriend was just a way for us to keep the house so that my mom's medical bills would get paid. And my mom's wishes were for my family to move into the house. After I got off the phone with Melanie, I called Rochelle to see how she felt but she couldn't talk right away. Once I was able to talk to Rochelle, it was very clear Melanie had gotten to her first and manipulated the situation. So I texted the group chat with my siblings. Essentially, they all want to sell the house at full value to a stranger so they can receive an inheritance of cash from the house selling. Melanie had very obviously made them believe that my mom only transferred the house into my name so I could take care of selling it and splitting the money with all of my siblings. That wasn't the truth, and I tried telling them that our mom did not do that, but Melanie had manipulated the situation. For context, Melanie is the oldest and all of our siblings can be pretty easily manipulated in a situation when it comes to Melanie. It sounds terrible, but it's true. I can see right through it and tried to say my side, but they are all on Melanie's side. They all want cash from the house, but I want to live in it like my mom had intended. Like I said, my mom transferred the house into my name. So I am going through with selling the house to my boyfriend to pay my mom's medical bills and so us and our 4 children can live there. My siblings feel like I have scammed them out of an inheritance, but I feel like I found a way to get the medical bills paid so that my family can live there, which is what my mom intended when she was here. So am I the asshole? Update 1. So first I want to say I am so appreciative of all the comments that seemingly are truly looking out for my best interest. My oldest sister, Melanie, had made me believe that the debt needed to be paid from the house, not the cash estate. She would never disclose to us that there was enough to pay off my mom's medical bills. I contacted an estate attorney and ended up speaking with the attorney who was directly handling my mom's medical debts. He told me that there was no need to sell the house right now. That my family could move into it with no worry of paying the medical debt until the future if I ever decided to sell it. So that's what we are going to do. If we ever decide to sell it, which I don't see right now why we would, as finding a 5-bedroom house is really hard to come by, we will split the sale of the house after her medical debts are paid and of course subtract any money we put into it going forward from their portion. I do agree that keeping the deed of the house in my name is the wise decision so that I will always have that security with my children if something were to ever happen between myself and my partner. I really appreciate all of the comments making that aware to me and all of the comments wanting to make sure I seeked out a lawyer. As far as the coins go, I didn't mention them because I was upset I wasn't getting a portion. I understand getting the house is a big deal. I mentioned what was happening with the coins to give an example as to why I don't feel I can trust Melanie. And why I feel like she is not being honest about the money and the estate. Which she wasn't. There is more money than just the coins that she is not being honest about. The deceptiveness is what hurts me. I feel like I am very open and honest with my family and would never try to deceive them. I would rather all conversations, especially with my family, hold integrity. Once I had felt settled and secure with talking to the lawyer, I texted my sibling group chat to let them know what was going on. That the house will stay in my name. Melanie has been manipulating the situation, and once she thought I was selling it to my boyfriend, I knew she would tell all my other siblings that the problem is not that I was keeping the house but that it would no longer be in my name. I can tell she is very angry that she can longer spin the story for her narrative. But this is what my mom had intended in the first place. For myself and my children to have somewhere to live, and she always knew my boyfriend was in our package deal. Melanie still seems mad, but I don't see the problem anymore. I'll keep this post updated if anything else happens to come up.